Well, good evening, everybody. Everybody is everybody of one. Oh, there's two. Excuse me. Hello. Probably need to turn the TV off in the background. Be my guess. Probably get copyrighted or something. In fact, yeah, let me do that. I'm in my comfy clothes tonight, so. All right. Well, hello, Mr. Deer Slayer. Uh-oh. Well, this may be an interesting night. I'll give it about 5 minutes. We'll see what happens. Oh, there one came back in. I know there's a couple of Californians out there that are supposed to come up. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, I got a question for you guys, whoever's out there that might do any transmission building. Got a new one for you that I've never had happen before. What's up, Mr. Luther? Got a 480 I built for a guy. And it worked fine and everything, and he was down the road with it. And he drove it to work one day, and he get back in it to move it, and then nothing. It would move if he run it up about 3,000 RPM. It would move. Not very well, but it would move. And so I says, well, give it back to me. This is because, I still, I stand behind what I do. So I pull this thing apart last night, and the torque converter clutch valve out of the pump is laying in the bottom of the pan with the spring and the plug, and the retainer is nowhere to be found. It either disintegrated or I don't know what happened to it, but never seen that happen before on an 80. Just kind of one of those weird things. So it got a couple clutches hot, and I'm going to take care of all that for him. Put a couple clutches in it. The rest of them, the only ones that really got affected were the Ford and the direct. Yeah, the band had a little bit of damage on it, but I'm going to go ahead and put a band in it too. And a couple bushings that got starved for fluid. Excuse me. But other than that, all the rest of them, and this thing's he's had it in there 6 months or so. And all the other clutches, there's not an ounce of wear on them. In fact, they still say Borg Warner on them, which is what I used on this transmission. Borg Warner is the factory clutch, what GM uses on all their transmissions. Even the 6T75s and 6L80s and those transmissions, those are all Borg Warner. And they all pretty much look the same, except for when you get into the 8L90 and the 10L80 and 10L90, they start using waffle plates. A little different design. Anyway, hey, I got a battle scar for you today. I was underneath a truck. I got stuck working today, but was underneath the truck and ended up standing up too fast and clobbered my head on the corner of the dang lift again. So now I get this nice tender spot up here on the top of my head. Makes you remember the old cartoons where they'd ask the guy, how many lumps you want? Oh, 2 or 3. And they'd clobber him over the top of the head. Stephen, I'm going to tell you that unfortunately the manuals are going by the wayside. I haven't had to do a whole lot of manuals. Now, when I was at one of the other dealerships I was at, that would have been 2005, somewhere around in there. 5, 6, and 7, somewhere in that area. When the Fast and the Furious movies started coming out, these guys were buying these Cobalts, these stock Cobalts, and thinking they're Speed Racer, and just the poor transmission just couldn't hold it. Up north where I'm from, they had a lot of Quick Trips up there, which is just a gas station with, really fancy stuff. It'd be similar to like Wawa down here in Florida. And, but at any rate, this kid had this red one. I remember it well because I got it so many times. But I kid you not, about every 6 months, he'd be in there with the transmission blown up. And, usually it's got the teeth knocked off of third gear, or it's just hard to shift because the blocker rings are just destroyed. The blocker rings, if you don't know what they are, the blocker rings are kind of like a brake. They've got an interference with another cone piece that actually slows the gear down to the same speed as the rest of the assembly so you can shift it. And when those go bad, they like to grind in gears all the time. So anyway, back then, I hear you. Yeah. Back then, you could still get the individual gears and the blocker rings, and of course, they wanted you to repair it. So I did this like I think I had to repair that like 3 times, and then the 4th time he brought this thing in, he'd blown it up so bad that I ended up having to put a whole transmission in it because it wasn't salvageable. So, and then this other kid had a silver Cobalt with a 5-speed in it, and I think it had 700 miles on it. He brought it in and he says it wouldn't move. And I picked it up in there, and it had physically like a quarter of the clutch plate hanging out of the bottom of the bell housing. And I says, so you dropping gears, were you? Oh, no, I just happened. He says, I know how to drive a stick. Mm-hmm. Sure you did. But of course, they warranted it, which they shouldn't have. But guess who got stuck putting a clutch in it? But anyway, so how's everybody doing? Everybody alive and breathing and healthy and all that good jazz? These mugs are great, but the ice doesn't melt in them. They occasionally I like Sprite, and you put Sprite in there right out of there, and it freezes kind of like the freezing rain. Stephen, you know what was weird is one of the places I worked at, and a guy had I think it was the 02, the same year as my truck, and he had an 8.1 in it with a manual in it, a 5-speed or 6-speed manual. I do believe it was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was a 6-speed manual, which is rare for those trucks. But man, that would have been nice to have. Fighting freezing rain. Yeah, you know, my mom still lives up there in the great old state of Missouri, and it's been colder than you know what up there. She's been hunkered down and staying warm. Yeah, the 4.3s were real common for having a manual in them. They ran better with a manual, I think. True story. When I had my shop, I had a customer that had a manual truck 4.3 and he said every time, and he always drove the same route. And he says, every time that I drive this thing and get it in 5th gear, it almost feels like it's missing a little bit. And of course, it had no mystery or misfires or anything like that. Finally ended up on those 4.3s and on the early R motor 350s, you know, the 96 to 2001 old body style that used the 350 with the port injection on it, that spider assembly would go bad. And they changed the spider assembly in the later years and put the injector down near the cylinder instead of up in a central area, because they had problems with them clogging. They just had like a poppet valve down there at the bottom that was spring loaded. And when it put pressure on it, it would blow the poppet open and then shut back up. But they had a problem with them gumming. So their trick is they moved the injector down to the end of the hose and just ran everything up through the bottom, and it pretty much fixed it. But anyway, long story short, the spider on this 4.3 had an injector that was starting to fail in it. Took me a while to find it, but I finally convinced him, let's put a spider in it and let me know how it does. And he was tickled to death. They said the thing ran like a champ. So it's weird stuff like that. Yeah, I think the 4.3 was one of the best engines that GM ever came up with when they started putting balance shafts. The first ones they came up with, they didn't have balance shafts in them, and they vibrated something fierce. But when they started putting balance shafts in them, they were a great engine. Great for marine applications. A lot of Mercruisers used them. Great boat motors. Man, they're fantastic boat motors. But at any rate, I got a 6L80 at work. I've been trying to get out for the past couple of days. It's got no second gear. Well, yeah, no second gear. And it's pretty bad, but 6L80s are kind of strange. How's the weather out there? Right now, it is starting to rain, and they've got us forecasted for rain for the next 5 days. And usually, when it rains down here in Florida, it dumps in buckets. And believe it or not, let's see, it's February 13th. The trees are pollinating down here. So I think we're going to have an early spring here. Down here, you get a lot of the yellow pollen all over everything, and it's already started on the cars. So, like I said, we're going to have an early spring. But it is a mess. I mean, it gets pretty thick. It can turn a black car yellow pretty easy. It's crazy. I've never been anywhere that's the pollens have been that bad. And up north, when I was in Missouri, you'd get a lot of tree sap. You'd start seeing the sap flying everywhere. Down here, you just get the yellow pollen. I mean, it's bad. Sometimes it gets bad enough to where it'll coat the grass and it'll just look yellow. It's crazy. Been down here 4 years now. It's kind of nice because, I mean, there's no snow down here, but it still gets cold. And the bad thing about cold down here is I'm still working full time, and most of the shops down here don't have heat in them. So when it gets down in the 20s and 30s and stuff like that, you're freezing your ass off in the morning trying to stay warm. But usually it warms up into the 60s or something like that in the afternoon, 70s or 80s or something like that. We've had the thermostat set to auto here in the house, and it's actually been kicking the air conditioner on lately in February, believe it or not, because it's just humid enough out there. A lot of times you can't leave the house open because of the humidity. It's just so sticky. Oh, it does. It's terrible because you can't keep your hands warm. And of course, you pick up an air tool or something like that, and it feels like a block of ice. The later I've been going, that I've been trying to convert to electric. I'm not sure if I'm totally hip on it yet, but I like the fact that you don't have a hose attached. That's the best thing. But as far as electric tools, I'm going to tell you, Milwaukee came on strong with the automotive industry, and their electric tools are pretty fantastic. Plus, they got a 5-year warranty on it. You can't get that out of an air tool. I mean, even if you bought a decent one off the tool truck, you maybe get 2 years and that's it. But then again, an air tool hardly ever breaks. I mean, there's very little maintenance to it. I mean, if you keep oil in it, shoot a couple of drops of oil down the inlet, before you use it in the morning, that tool will last a long time. My big impacts, I haven't had to buy one in years. They just keep working. And the only thing bad about the electric is the fact that once the battery goes bad, you have to buy another battery, and sometimes it ain't cheap. But if the tool stays working, that's not so bad. I wish I wish that I had decent internet out there in the shop, is I'd actually take you out there in the shop and do something out there live. But I mean, unfortunately, I don't. We have a concrete block house, and you would call them cinder blocks probably. And the roof on my shop is metal, so the Wi-Fi doesn't work worth a dang out there. It's hard to get a good signal. So this computer's hardwired, so I've got another one in my bedroom. Eventually, I'll move this into the bedroom, but I'm waiting on the next time I can get up north and take a trailer up there and bring some stuff back. My mom wants to get rid of Dad's desk that was in the basement. And it's a really nice, big, wood heavy desk. And I told her, I says, I really wanted that. And so she saved it for me. And he's got a drill press up there too. And there's a couple other things I want to pick up. And yeah, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get up there. Money's kind of tight. Unfortunately, every time I go up there, it's at least a $1,500 trip. So that's kind of pricey. Old Bertha doesn't get the greatest gas mileage. Especially not when I'm tacking a trailer along. But anyway, some of the upcoming stuff. I mean, if you guys have been following the L to the W, that's moving along pretty good. Got another video coming out tomorrow. It'll be online at noon Eastern, so you have to check it out. It's a little something different. And got one more video after that for some of his stuff, and then we're going to start doing the build on his 700. So you're going to want to pay attention to that. That's got some goodies in it. Stephen Bertha is a 2002 2500 HD with an 8100 in it. And the Allison transmission. It's got 411s in it, front and rear. I searched a while to find that truck when I bought it, and it was 3 years old when I bought it. I've had it since 2005. That's the longest I've ever had a vehicle. Absolutely love that truck. I'd really like to take the body off of it and strip the frame and have it repowder coated and cleaned up and stuff like that, but I really don't have any place to do it. Plus, it's kind of a money thing, you know. I'm kind of hoping somebody will pick up on me while I'm doing this stuff and, you know, maybe start sponsoring my videos and stuff like that and helping out. That would be great, because I could put it back in there, but I don't know that it'll ever happen. I'm not one of the popular people. I'm just an average Joe, just wanting to get out there and teach what I've learned over the years, and I really enjoy it. I mean, it takes a lot of time, but I don't know, I like it. I really do. Yeah, I've been growing a little at a time. I'll go through spurts. I mean, it'll kind of plateau and then it'll shoot up, and then it'll plateau again and it'll shoot up. There was a YouTuber that I used to watch on here all the time, and he I guess what happened to him is somehow all of his videos got deleted. And he was so mad, he posted one last video on there that he was leaving YouTube. And he went to Rumble. And I actually have an account on Rumble, but I haven't posted anything there. I haven't done anything with it. But kind of interesting. I haven't quite figured out that site yet. Yeah, I know it takes time. I'm just, unfortunately, time doesn't stop, and I keep getting older. You know how that goes. I want to enjoy it before I croak or get 6 foot under. Yeah, that's what I'm kind of hoping for. There's another. I haven't heard much out of him either, but Chicago's Finest Moment is another one that I know he's been watching. I don't know if he's. I haven't seen him post anything lately, but I think he was interested in me doing a transmission for him also, which that's fine. I mean, if you guys want me to do one, I'd be happy to. Haven't figured out how to do that just yet. Going like out of town's deal. I mean, I guess I could ship one. I've got plenty of pallets here at the house. You know, I could make a box for it pretty easy and ship it out that way if that's what needed to be done. It just gets hard when you do a walk-in transmission for somebody, because the worst thing that you worry about is if the, you know, whoever installs it, you know, doesn't get the torque converter in all the way or something like that and destroys the pump. Well, you know, then you've got a destroyed pump, and that's the only thing I worry about. I mean, I check everything when I put it together to make sure it all works, you know, what I can on the bench. But you kind of like to watch you like to see the thing go down the road too, you know, experience what you've done. It's kind of like when I did my first 10-speed for that 2018 Tahoe. I'd never done one of those yet. I'd had very little schooling on it, but it was pretty neat how the thing came apart and went together. I think the technical assistance center was kind of shocked when I was actually repairing this thing. I was like, well, why not? I mean, it's definitely going to be cheaper to repair it than it is to replace it for, you know, little damage that's in it. But I guess they just had everybody else. They were just putting the whole unit in it. The transmission man, I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of transmission guys out here online, and you know, it's kind of funny to watch some of the other. I mean, being a transmission tech myself, I mean, you look at other guys and you watch them just to see how they do it, you know, and whether or not, you know, I'm kind of a by the book kind of guy. You know, I like to make sure that things are right and you measure it, and it's got to be clean, and it's cool. It really is, you know. But then you look at something somebody's come up with for like taking a measurement. There's like, holy crap, how did they come up with that? But you know, whatever works. I seen a guy that popped on my feed. He was setting up the low reverse band on a 4L80, and he had this. If any of y'all been in the 4L80s, they got this housing on the back that covers up the piston, and it's got a gasket on the bottom and 6 bolts that holds it down. But anyway, he had a bolt in the top of this thing, which I'd never seen before. And it looked like it had a nut welded on it. And I'm assuming that it had the hole that went all the way through it. And his setup, which was kind of neat, and it would work. You take and you put he had a thread in dial indicator post that went right into the base of the case, and then your dial indicator went on top of it, and he set the needle on top of I guess whatever he was pressing down on, and then you tighten it up and you measure the travel on how far it went, and you know if it was the right travel or not. Where GM's method is completely different. Well, no, I wouldn't say it's completely different, but their tool, if you watch one of my other videos, it's just got the square plate that bolts on there. And then you've got a little finger and a actual pin with a gauge on it. And that's how you measure the pin length. You torque the nut to I think it's like 94 inch pounds or something like that. I can't remember off the top of my head. I mean, I have to look it up again, but we'll be here. You tighten it like to 94 inch pounds, and then you look at your gauge and you find out there's an A, B, and a C on it. And then they've got little flats on it. And when that flat is level with the tool base, then that tells you that that's what pin it's supposed to take. And there's like 7 different pins you can put on a 4L80 for that low reverse band. Excuse me. And with the tool, I guess it's either right or wrong. It's kind of like setting the 2.4 band servo on a 700 4L60 E and all those. I mean, you got the tool, you torque it to a certain inch pound, and if it's in the line, then that's it. That's the pin that you need. I mean, if not, you either get a longer pin, or you can grind the end of the pin, to make it right. I know that on those pins, you don't want a flat pin, just FYI. You want to kind of make it kind of bevel. You can use the washer for an example, the inside of a washer. If you look at that, then that gives you an idea how the pin tip is supposed to be. You just don't want it flat because it'll gouge into the band and cause a stickiness. Anyway, I'm babbling now. Kind of got me talking about transmission stuff, huh? As you can tell, I kind of like it. I mean, I always like transmission stuff. I've built some Ford transmissions. I've built a couple Chrysler transmissions. I tell you a transmission that was pretty cool. And it was a yeah, I like building them. I just don't like having to take them in and out of the cars. I can tell you that much. Especially a front drive. Man, they're a pain in the butt. Some of them can be really bad. But a neat transmission that I did was an Ison Warner. It was a 4-speed automatic, and it was in an Isuzu box truck. That was probably one of the neatest transmissions I think I've done. Just for the way it was put together. And that thing had straight cut gears in it. Well, almost straight cut. So the lower planetaries, man, it made some ruckus. I had my first shop that I had was just a little 4-bay, and it was back in an industrial district. And it was a great little shop. It really was. I just outgrew it really fast. But the neighbor next to me had a standard cab long bed 2500 Duramax with an Allison that he had the Allison done by, I think, Central Power, which they changed the gear sets on the Planetaries on lower, and they had, heavier gear sets in them, and man, were they noisy. I mean, you probably could have never blown it up, but man, they were some noisy gears. They changed the angle of the gear cut, and they call them a helical cut, and it makes the gear set quieter because it's almost in constant mesh. That's why when you, if any of y'all watch old Cletus McFarland, those TR6060s that RPM does, that's what they do to those. They faceplate them, and then they put almost a straight cut gear set in them for strength. So if y'all ever do a rear end and you decide to get a gear set for it, if you buy a Richmond gear set, a normal, Richmond gear set, they're going to make noise out of the box from the get-go. And the reason why is that's how they're cut. They're cut more for strength than they are quiet. I know GM uses American Axle manufacturing on most all their gear sets, and they're inherently quiet. My 411s that have been in the rear end of my truck, they've made noise since day one that I've owned it. Never gotten any louder. Never had a problem with it. And every time I do a service, they look spectacular. And that's just because that's the way they're cut. I'm thinking I probably didn't put my notice out here early enough this time that I was going to be out here. Either that or everybody's just busy. Been kind of quiet tonight. Again, though, I'm just an average Joe. I'm out here for you guys. Chevy and the GMC 4-cylinder diesel. You talking like the front drives, Stephen? Because the Colorados are a 6-cylinder, and then they got the new light duty 6-cylinder that they're putting in the full size pickup. It's a 3-liter diesel in the full size pickup, and talking about those, I haven't had to do much to them. Neither is Steve. They're fairly quiet, and from what I understand, they get pretty good fuel mileage. I put a post out there on Instagram today on that. Who'd have thought that they'd put sewing machine oil in a diesel, and say that a lot, don't I? The 3-liter Duramax takes 0W20 for a diesel engine. I thought that was crazy. The 4-cylinder turbo in the GMC Sierra is not a diesel. It is a gas motor, believe it or not. If it's a diesel, it's a 6-cylinder. Either that or there's something on the West Coast that I don't know about, but The 4-cylinder turbo is it's a big 4-cylinder. It's like a 2.7. Yeah. Yeah, they do the 4-cylinder turbo. And it's like I said, it's like a 2.7 liter. It's a big 4-cylinder. So you got coffee cans flying up and down in there. And then you got the 3-liter Duramax diesel, 5.3, and then they still have a 6.2, unless you get a 3/4 ton. Then it's a 6.6 liter gas motor. And of course, you got the 6.6 liter diesel also. That 6.6 liter gas motor, if I remember right, does not have displacement on demand, nor if I remember right, it does not have variable valve timing. But so far on the 4-cylinder gas motors, I think we've had one of them with a bad head gasket, but other than that, it seems to be pretty reliable. And there's a bunch of them out there. I guess they don't run too bad. I mean, coupled with the 10-speed, you got tons of gear choices. And they did the same thing with the diesel. So, what they make up for in the power area is made up by gear choice. That's probably why they're putting the 10-speed in about everything. I'm going to tell you right, for me, from a technician standpoint, if I was to buy a new truck, I would not want to buy the diesel. I mean, not unless I had, plenty of money to burn, just because to me, the diesel still got a lot of high maintenance, a lot of stuff you got to maintain on it, a lot of stuff that you got to worry about. I mean, it would probably be all right if it didn't have all the stupid emissions thing on there, because, I mean, the DEF fluid just ends up causing a lot of problems. So that's just me. Call me old school. Wow, that's a good question. If it was a new truck, huh? Well, I guess it all depends on what kind of truck I'd want. If it was a half, a 3/4, or yeah, the Sierra Denali is pretty nice. I would agree to that. I'm not real hip on what they did with the bodies on either the truck, but between the two, the GMC looks hands down better than the Chevy does. That the HD Chevy is just fugly in the front end. And if I was to get a heavy truck like a 3/4 or 1 ton, I'm not sold on the 10-speed that they've got in those. They supposedly say that it's Allison. It says Allison on it, and I don't know how they got away with that, because it's not an Allison transmission. And for some reason, Allison put their name on it, which looks nothing like Allison, nothing like what they used to use. It's It's not built by Allison. It's built by Hydromatic, GM's division. So how they got Allison to sign off on it, I'm not sure. But so far, as I knock on wood, oh, hush, it's just me. Haven't seen any breakdowns of that new 10L1000. So I'll keep your fingers crossed that, it holds up. But I love my Allison 5-speed that I've got in my truck. That thing has done everything that I've ever asked it to do. It's reliable and it pulls. And I'm really glad I didn't buy a diesel in that year that I've got. Because, otherwise I'd be putting injectors in it all the dang time. So, yeah, I got my dogs going. I got 3 of them back here, so. And then you can see that one right over there. That is Foxy. That is the youngest cat that we have. She's almost 2 already. She's a handful. Foxy Mama. Foxy. She's ignoring me now. But, yeah, I got one dog right down here beside me. The other 2 are on the couch. Oh, wow. 11's getting up there for a shepherd. Yeah, Buster is... I'm trying to think how old Buster is. I think Buster's 8. And the 2 girls, the lab and the golden, she's not a golden, she's more of a blonde retriever. They're like 6. And would you believe when we were living up in Missouri, we drove all the way up to Wisconsin to get these 2 dogs. My wife had found these friends on Facebook. And so we drove up there, and it was wintertime when we drove up there. Holy crap, was it cold. We stayed in a little cabin after we got them, and they were puppies at the time. We stayed in this little cabin. And when we woke up to leave in the morning, it was 21 below zero. That's the temperature that is, 21 below zero. It was freaking cold. And so we left at like, I think it was 5 or 6 in the morning. It was crazy. We left at like 5 or 6 in the morning. Excuse me. Got on the road, and they have a I-35 up there also that runs east and west, where I-35 down here runs north-south. But they have an east-west I-35, and we were heading out to come back down south. And we're bebopping along, and we're having to take choices in between keeping our toes warm or keeping the windshield thawed, because we couldn't get enough heat out of that. We still had the Escape at the time, and we still do have the Escape. She keeps Bessie just keeps right on going. But we had went up there, and I kid you not, we could not get enough heat in that vehicle to do any good. I mean, of course, the temperature gauge showed normal, but Fords are kind of weird. Their gauge, even though it shows normal operating temperature, it may not. It's like on a timer. It's like a switch or something like that. You get to a certain temperature, then it goes bloop, and it stays right up there at normal range. And then when it gets hot, it goes up, But anyway, we kept playing in between the defrost and the floor to try to keep our toes warm or keep the windshield thawed, because it was so cold up there that the escape wouldn't build up enough heat to keep the heater going. And if it would have been thawed, I would have stopped somewhere and gotten a piece of cardboard or something and done the old farmer trip and put it in front of the radiator to keep it warm. Yeah, I'm sure Indiana is freezing cold, Jerry. But anyway, we're bebopping along on 35, and she goes to hit the brake, and she's starting to cringe as the wife took off and driving the first thing in the morning. It's like, "What are you doing?" Says, "I ain't got no brakes." Says, "What are you talking about?" Says, "There's nothing there." And pretty soon the escape started slowing down, and what had happened is it was so stinking cold that it was freezing. The fluid wouldn't flow in the brakes. I mean, it was just terrible. I mean, it was cold. But that was a pretty fun trip. Once sun started coming up, we were doing a lot better. Of course, it warmed up a little bit. The further south we got, the better off it was. But anyway, sorry about me yawning. It's been a long day. I got some of the projects too. I've got another 263 HD transfer case to go through. Another one. Yeah, I'm sure, Jerry. The house we had up in Missouri, this last one we had was we had an actual fireplace that we used quite a bit. I used to laugh at my wife because she'd make a fire in that thing, and I kid you not, I'd walk in the door from outside, and all you hear is the house rumbling, and that fireplace would just be a blazing. I mean, it was just cooking. I mean, it was shooting some heat out like you would not believe. I'm surprised there wasn't flames coming out of the chimney on the outside. But I guess when they had to have it inspected when we sold the house again, I guess there was a couple of fire bricks that had cracked from the heat. I was like, well, imagine that. Yeah, wood stoves are nice too. There's a type of wood that I know that you don't put in a wood stove. It's hedge. You don't want to put a piece of hedge in a wood stove. They burn so stinking hot. It'll make that wood stove glow. I had lots of friends that tried to do that. I tell you what's really efficient though is those pellet stoves. I had a guy that used to heat his house with one of those pellet stoves, and it was one of the automatic ones too. It was pretty cool. You'd fill the hopper up, and it trickled down a couple of pellets now and then. It was pretty simple, and it worked great. But Goodness gracious. I'm sorry, guys. Wow. Like I said, it's been a long day. But at any rate, I'm getting anxious to get started on this on building this 700 R4 for L to the W. I know he's getting anxious to get it back, so I may try to work on that tomorrow too. Get some videos recorded for you guys, and I think my camera phone is starting to finally take a dump. I mean, it is an old Note 4. I haven't had the money to buy any decent camera equipment, so I keep telling myself I'm going to one of these days, but I can't decide on what to get. So I've got what I've been using. Well, here, I'll go get it. What I've been using is an old Samsung Note. It's a Note 4, and it records in 1080. Pretty decent job. I've used it for almost all my videos, but I was trying to use it last night, and it was getting the old herky jerky to the videos. So I ended up having to had to re-record the video using the old tried and true Canon HD. This is an old one too. It's actually got a hard drive in it. It uses memory. It uses memory cards though also. This thing does a pretty good job. The only problem is I can't use my lapel mics on it. For some reason, it doesn't like lapel mics. But it works a little better because the viewfinder, you can actually see yourself on it. Where that one, if you use the rear camera, that's the only one that records in 1080, and it of course you can't see yourself when you're looking at the camera. So yeah, I did have a lot of parts I discarded for the 7. Excuse me, lots of updates. In fact, I don't know what I did to my list, but I had a list that I had all. Oh, here it is, right here. You know, it's when I researched my parts and stuff. You know, that's pretty much a list that I use for what we're doing on the 700. And of course, then I got another guy there that I found as a supplier. I had to order a couple parts that didn't come in the overhaul kit. Something you guys need to know, like on the 700s, they had some updates to it that are pretty important, that a lot of times when you get an overhaul kit, they don't take that in account. One of them is there's a cogged, might be able to show you. Let's see if it's in my trusty dusty book here. They had a update to the there's a seal. Yeah, here we go. This is a actual bulletin that they came out with for 91. And basically what it states, it's in the ATSG manual. I know that's probably backwards for you guys to read, but you get the idea. But anyway, that's the seal I'm talking about. And they changed it from the seal on the original one was a hard plastic. And the new one that they do is a brown soft rubber seal. And because what they had a problem with is that seal would deteriorate, that hard plastic seal would deteriorate and break the ring off. It wouldn't, it sounds bad, but it's actually break the ring of the seal. So it would leak oil past that, and starve the lower end for the proper oil or whatever it needs to get where it goes, because it just spit the oil back out there. So they went to that soft rubber one, and it's a lot better seal, and you're supposed to update it with all the new ones. So I know there's a spline cut recess area in the pump versus connection to torque converter. Well, I'm not quite sure I'm following you on that, Jerry, but the torque converter engages in the pump basically on two tangs that are inside the pump. And it like I said, there's two tanks inside the pump and then there's the snout of the torque converter on the 700 or 4L60 has got two grooves cut in it, two square cut grooves on 180 degrees apart from each other, and that's what locks into the pump itself and rotates the pump. Yeah, there's two of them there. That's what engages the pump. On a 4L80, that's just a flat cut on the deal, and there's just the 4L80. See if I can draw this. Yeah, like on a 4L80, if you look there on the side, it's kind of got two flats on either side, and that's what the torque converter splines to. On a 4L60, on the inside of the pump, you basically got two ears that stick out either side, and that's what the pump grabs hold, or the torque converter grabs hold of. There is those two teeth on either side. Yeah, that we were just talking about that earlier. Doing carry out and transmissions, and if you don't get that torque converter in there just right and get it all the way locked into to the pump, then you can end up busting the pump, because I mean, as soon as you try to tighten or push that in there, or if it's not spaced away from the flywheel when you're bolting it together, then yeah, you run a huge risk of busting that pump, because as soon as you put pressure on that snout, that torque converter, it's got to go somewhere, so it's going to crush that pump, and it breaks the pump rotor. And what they're talking about on spacers too is you want those two ears to lock in for as much of the surface area as you can on that pump. So if it's too far away from the flywheel, you can put a washer in between the bolt and the flywheel flex plate to get that thing with the right spacing on it. If you can. I mean, you can't always take the measurements during disassembly, but as long as you get everything back together right, you'll be fine. Just double check yourself and do air checks, make sure everything works, and you'll be good to go. Well, y'all, I think I'm going to call it a night. Yeah, the cats are talking again. That was Zoe you heard. She's getting up there in age too. I got a couple of older cats. Well, actually 3 of them that are getting pretty old. Socks is my cat, and he's like 18 years old. He's kind of getting skinny old man deal. Same with Zoe. I think he's about the same. Yeah, Jerry, you're getting the snow and we're getting the rain. But all right, y'all. I'm gonna call it a night. Thank you so much for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Y'all take care of yourself. Take care of each other. God bless you. God bless America, and we'll see you next time. Mr. Bressett, you're more than welcome. I'm glad you could use them. Y'all take care, and we'll see you on the next one. Tell everybody I'll try to do one of these every Saturday, 8 o'clock Eastern time. So, get some more people in here and makes it more interesting. So take care, y'all.